Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome back to the Mixed Martial Arts channel. We are here today for a breakdown of UFC Vegas 103 Manel, Kape versus Almabayev. This card was honestly pleasantly very fun. I enjoyed almost the entire card. We had a lot of close decisions and weird scoring, but overall it was still good and still enjoyable. So I'm very happy with how it went. Some questionable moments that we will get to in the later on parts of the video. Obviously want to get to those fights. So as I say at the start of every single one of these videos, I will start with the main event, make my way down to the very last fight or first fight of the night, the first fight on the prelims, and we will go through each fight, and the chapters will be available for you along the timeline below. So if you're looking for a particular fight breakdown, you can skip right to it if that is what you are after, and hopefully you want to watch the entire video, but if not, that is okay. You will be able to skip through and find whatever you're after. So we're going to start with the main event of Manel Kape versus Almabayev. So, Manel Kape is back. It was a questionable performance at times. There is a lot to go over, so we'll get started with just saying, first of all, I think Kape won the first two rounds, and obviously this finish came into the third round of this fight. However, I want to point out the clear difference in style and maybe just approach from Kape in this fight. He didn't really change up his game plan too much or his fighting style too much, but what he did change up is his pace and his aggression, and that was definitely toned down in this fight, at the very least for the first two rounds. And it did get a little bit more aggressive as time went on, but we saw a much more reserved Manel Kape in this fight, and that makes me happy because this is the first 5-round fight he's ever fought in the UFC. So all that says to me is that he knows, obviously he's been in Ryzen and stuff before and fought in championship fights before. So he's fought in big fights with long rounds and stuff like that. But this just shows me that obviously Kape is aware of how to fight a 3-rounder versus a 5-rounder, which makes me think that he won't be one to gas in a 4th and 5th round if he is to reach them in future fights, whether it's title fights or main events that he's going to be in probably exclusively from now on. So he goes out there, I think they said it was a 17-fight win streak that Almabayev was on. He's put that to an end now. So we can get into the stoppage. The stoppage starts in the earlier rounds because you have to mention there was a couple of eye pokes in this fight, right? Now, the first eye pokes weren't legit. That needs to be said. The first one was from Kape on Almabayev. Almabayev was like, oh, he poked me in the eye. And Kape was like, no, I didn't. But the ref stopped it, looks at it, sees that it was a punch that caused it, and it had formed a mouse underneath the eye of Almabayev. And Almabayev was like going, like pouring his eye a little bit. The ref sees, he doesn't see, but he gets told by one of the officials that it was a legal punch that caused the irritation to Almabayev's eye, and immediately the ref goes, legal strike, all right, get ready, we're starting the fight again, ready, set, go, and immediately just forces Almabayev back into the fight. Something we need to see more often. Get the official to look at that shit immediately so that we can either be like, ooh, this is a techie one, let's have a look at it for a second, or it can be like, that was a clear closed fist. Get them back fighting immediately. Every second that passes right now, you're taking away a possibility of a finish from that guy who just hurt this dude, and then he managed to find a way to get the referee to stop the fight, even though he legally hurt you. So, tis what tis in that moment, but we got the fight started back again, and the fight continued. Then, Manel Kape got poked in the eye later on. However, he didn't stop the fight for it, and he kind of poured his eye, went like, blinked a bit, tapped it, and then the ref goes to stop the fight, and Manel's like, I'm good, and they go, all right, continue, and then they go and they fight on. And the third eye poke comes right before the finish, where Almabayev is kind of circling out away from Manel Kape, and Manel goes to slap him across the face, essentially. I don't know what his intention was with the strike, but it was an open hand slap, and the way that it hits Almabayev is running away from the hand, so he's going in this direction, and Kape's hand comes across and goes over his face, and then onto the eye that is just as before Kape's hands leave Almabayev's face, goes onto his eye, and kind of dips in, maybe under the eyelid, maybe into the bottom, maybe straight into the eye, I'm not sure. But it wasn't a clear finger on eyeball poke. That needs to be said. Obviously, it's going to be an aggressive, like, rough hand, you know, like the fighters aren't light-handed when they're trying to grab each other or anything, and it was a strike, you know, like he threw a slap. It wasn't just like great hand graze across his face. It was literally a slap across his face that, like, as Almabayev was going in the other direction, he gets caught with like that, just like boom across his face like that. But it's literally like a slap across the face. Fingers go into the eye or around the eye, on the eye, but they do not enter the eye, if that makes sense. I know I just said in the eye, but they don't, it's not the same as when you get poked, like literally fingers in the eye or under the eyelid scooped up, or if you get one where it's like their thumb goes underneath the eyelid, or where they poke into the eye, like on top of the eyelid, but still like gouge the eye a bit. Not that. It's not the same. Okay? Still arguably could be called as a foul, and probably should have been called as a foul, but it's not the same. Okay? It is different. Now, the issue with that isn't the eye poke. I'm not trying to justify eye pokes, okay? What I am saying is that it was a weird looking one, wasn't clear, and the ref didn't see it. So when the ref doesn't see the eye poke, whether it sucked for you or not, you cannot sit there and try and call timeout. It's not your job. It's not. The ref shouldn't ever call a timeout when the guy asks. Even if he's like, oh, maybe that was an eye poke. The ref should make that call in the instant. Either I saw that and that was an eye poke, or I didn't see that and I can't take your word for it because I didn't see it. That's the way it's got to be. So the ref didn't see it, and Almabayev gets cornered and starts trying to be like, hey, like timeout, and the ref's like, bro, I don't even know if the ref understood why he was saying timeout, but you can't just call a timeout in the middle of the fight. So Manel just swarmed him and pounced on him, just got it done at the end. I'll say that it was a questionable stoppage because after he said timeout, Manel jumped on him, hit him and hurt him a couple times, but then Almabayev does get out of that little corner. He's backed up into a corner. He does get out, circle around, and turns into a fucking track and field athlete. And literally, he's a track star his way across to the other side of the octagon. And as he's running around the octagon, not even straight across it, literally running around the octagon like a fucking bull, Manel Cap's right on his ass chasing him, clipping him with a couple of shots as he's running along behind it. It looks fucking ridiculous, Looney Tunes shit, if I had to describe it in any way. But as Manel's following him, he hits him with a couple things, but he's missing majority of these strikes that he's trying to throw from behind Almabayev. And then Almabayev does, I don't remember whether he tripped or whether he hit the cage or whether he just decided to turn around, but the chase comes to an end and they end up getting together. And Cap continues to throw strikes and ground and pound and land them. And then Almabayev shoots in for a takedown, and it's a bit lazy and sloppy and laboured, and that's when the referee decides to step in. It's questionable because Almabayev did just engage in a takedown. He literally just shot, so it's kind of strange to call the fight there. But I think now, looking at it in retrospect, I feel like the reason the ref called it is because of the running away visual. That's a really bad visual to give the referee. You're just running. Not even like backing up backwards. Like the guy's in front of you and you're like, oh, let me just run away backwards. It's literally got your back turned to the motherfucker, running in the other direction. Like, you are not giving any sign that you, one, want to fight, or two, are capable of fighting. And if the ref doesn't think you've been poked in the eye and he sees you doing that, he's going to be like, my guy, where are you going? This is the apex. It is fucking 3 feet wide. You are not going to get far. We're in a phone booth right now. Stop running. And when you did stop running and immediately got clipped a couple more times and shot in on a takedown rather than engaging in the striking or trying to be defensively sound, the ref's like, this is a shot for dear life. I've just seen this guy run a marathon to get away from this fight. I'm going to pull him out of it. Because he clearly isn't capable of continuing or doesn't want to continue anymore. And he's like caved in and is just going on instincts now of how to hide himself and get his head into a place that he can't be hit kind of thing. Which is arguably what Almabayev was doing. Including the running away. He was also trying to just get your head into a place that it can't be hit. Which is I guess, a meter away from Manel Kape, but even that barely worked. So I will admit, questionable stoppage. I'd love to hear what other people have to think about it, but in my eyes, it's, while weird and annoying to watch, still makes sense, and especially, like I said, in retrospect, can't really blame the ref, first of all, okay? And second of all, you can blame Almabayev for trying to call a timeout in the middle of a fight. You can't do that. Whether you want to or not, and whether it's... I'm not going to blame Almabayev for acting on instinct, but you can blame Almabayev if he decides he's like, that's unfair. Then you go, well, now that you've put us in a position where someone has to be blamed, it is you that has to be blamed for this. No one has to be blamed. We can just say, weird stoppage, but kind of makes sense. You know, I get it. But as soon as Almabayev or Almabayev's team or someone like that tries to say, that was not a fair stoppage, we have to say, maybe you're right. But the reason it was not fair is because you put yourself in a bad position. And you made it harder for yourself to win the fight, have a comeback moment, land a good counter shot, or give the referee an opportunity to see that you needed help. All four of those things, you hindered yourself in. So unfortunate, we don't need to say Almabayev, you fucking threw the fight, because he didn't. But if anyone needs to be pointed out as the causality of why the stoppage looked weird and yet still came to fruition as a stoppage, it's Almabayev, unfortunately. But Manel Kape is, I don't want to say back because he's been back now. He's still here. We've got our boy on this title run. He called out, I couldn't tell whether it was Pantoja or Kai. Maybe it was both, or just the winner, I guess, of that. I like it. There's a lot of backstory there between both of those two guys. Him and Haqparast have backstory and beef of like having been meant to fight each other and stuff, and him calling Kai a faggot and all that sort of shit. And Pantoja and him have fought before in Manel Kape's first UFC fight, I want to say. And I will actually double check that right now. I believe it was Manel Kape's first UFC fight. And he made it kind of close. I believe that's one of the closer fights that Pantoja's had in the UFC. It was Manel Kape's first fight, yeah. And it was scored 29-28 by two judges. One judge gave it 30-27 to Manel, but two of them gave it 29-28. So there was at least a round in there that Manel Kape stole off him. And he didn't let Pantoja grapple him, as I'm seeing now. Pantoja didn't get a single takedown. In fact, Manel Kape landed 2 takedowns. Pantoja beat him mainly in the striking, which is a bit odd, but, you know, tears but tears. I'm not going to look into it too much because it's just statistics and not actually like the fight itself, but I like it. I don't know if I want to say Manel Kape gets a title shot next. I kind of want to lean towards the direction of saying give Manel Kape the loser of Pantoja versus Kai, especially if that's Kai. Like if Kai loses to Pantoja, I kind of feel like you do Kai versus Manel. You know, I kind of think you do Kai versus Manel anyway, actually, to be fair, now that I'm saying it. Maybe you do, if Kai wins, you do Kai versus Manel for the title. If Pantoja wins, you do Pantoja versus Merab. Or Pantoja versus the winner of Merab and Mali, whatever's going to happen there. And then you do Kape versus Kai as just a number one contender fight for Kape. Obviously, if Kai wins that fight, he's just floating back in the top 5, looking for a number one contender fight, but he doesn't just get another number one contender fight back to back against Manel Kape. But it's a grudge match, and it needs to happen, in my opinion. So I think that fight should happen either way. I don't actually think it makes sense for Manel to get Pantoja next, because, like I said, if Pantoja loses to Kai, either A, they'll do a rematch with Pantoja and Kai, or that they might do Manel versus Kai for the title. I doubt that. My main prediction in that situation is that Pantoja's going to get a rematch because he's been reigning as champ for a while now, with a lot of wins over the division, so it'd be weird of them to just chuck him out straight away. But if they didn't, I guess you could do Pantoja versus Manel Kape as a number one contender fight, but I don't really get that. I feel like Pantoja deserves to remain in the title picture for at least one instant rematch that he hasn't had the opportunity to have yet. So yeah, I reckon you do Manel versus Kai if he loses that. I think that's the best outcome to me. Is Kai Kara-France loses to Pantoja. Pantoja goes up a division to fight Merab. Maybe loses, maybe wins, who knows. And Manel beats Kai Kara-France and then gets a title shot after that. Whether that's for a vacant title or an interim title because Pantoja's gone, or if they fight Pantoja, if he fights Pantoja when he comes back. Either way, I think that's the best way to do it. Let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Now, this one was interesting. The co-main event of this card was meant to be dog shit, okay? Everyone was saying, what is going on? Why is Esteban Ribovics not being given, and fucking bro got robbed. Why is Esteban Ribovics not being given co-main event spot here over Brundage versus Marquez? Both guys with losing UFC records. I believe Brundage was 4-5-1, with one of those wins being a DQ win. And Marquez was 3-4, I want to say. So, questionable. Both guys, middleweight losers, cans in the UFC at least, not cans outside the UFC, they're crush cans outside the UFC, but in the UFC, they are on the fringe of the rankings, cans, kind of losing to the big guys, beating some unranked guys, but that's about it. But let me say, this fight was great, okay? The lead up to the ending was a little bit just of random swinging and scrappy fighting, which is what I expected between the two of them. I feel like Brundage was really kind of putting a little bit of a clinic on Marquez. Marquez started to land a couple of shots in the latter half of the fight. I believe it only lasted like 4 minutes, 3 minutes, right? 4 minutes 45, yeah. In like after maybe 2 minutes into the round, that's when Marquez started to land a couple of things on Brundage. Before that, it was all Brundage essentially. And then Marquez clips Brundage real bad, gets him up against the cage, and basically puts him out cold. Brundage was out to me, it looked like he was fucking asleep, okay? And then Marquez, the dumb fuck, decides to not follow up with more strikes or push him to the ground or take him down or something. He jumps on a fucking standing guillotine, literally giving Brundage the opportunity to wake up without having had fallen down. What the fuck is that kind of room temperature IQ of a move? I couldn't tell ya. Bro threw away the fight in that exchange because he's got Brundage in that headlock there, just holding him there. And Brundage fucking wakes up and arises from the dead like Christ the Redeemer, brother. He's literally come back, he's moved to that stone, Jesus himself is walking out of that cave, and just decides, you know what? I've already died tonight. I ain't got nothing to lose. And then just goes out there and slumps Julian Marquez. Cold. Basically. And then it wasn't out cold, but you know what I mean? Like, cold performance is what I'm saying. Slumps Julian Marquez, drops him, follows him down to the mat, hits him with a bit of ground and pound. And this is where it gets interesting. Brundage was given a lengthy piece of rope for that stoppage, okay? When he was being knocked out. That fight could have been stopped. I would have been upset with it because I was like, I don't think Brundage is out. And he's like, looks like he's trying to mount an attempted recovery. And he was struggling badly. But it looked like he was constantly trying. And that's impressive. And also, in the judges' criteria, that's the referee criteria. That's what they're meant to be looking for. They're meant to be looking for attempt to be I think it's intelligent defense is the word that they use, or something like that. So they call it some kind of smart defense, and like looking like you're not just instinctively waving your arms around like but you're actually like trying to bob or weave or put your guard up to block shots, or like you're catching the guy's rhythm maybe. And Brundage was kind of doing that, but he was essentially unconscious while doing so. And then he gets out of that headlock that Marquez had him in, and he throws a fucking monstrous knee and clips Marquez clean on the fucking face. Just beautifully placed. And he lands, I don't remember whether it was a jab or a straight shot afterwards, but then he lands one shot on Marquez after that knee. And this is where I think a lot of controversy is going to come into play, but I want to clarify this. That is where the referee stopped the fight. Okay? The referee stopped the fight once, not stopped like stoppage. I'll explain in a moment. The referee paused the fight the moment he saw Brundage beginning to take over in that exchange, which is as smart of a moment as you could possibly choose. He is essentially being finished right now, Brundage. He is in the process of being knocked out and finished. And The referee can't just step in and interrupt a finishing sequence like that. He just can't. Okay? Doesn't matter how much he's like, these guys are swinging shit at each other and they're just smacking each other in the face over and over and over again. And neither of them is wearing a mouthpiece right now, because I'm holding 2 mouthpieces in my hands like, when the fuck can I give these back to these guys? Am I going to have to pull some teeth out of someone's mouth after this fight ends? So the ref's just waiting for the right moment. Like, when the fuck am I going to get to stick these things back in your gobs, bro? Just open up in the middle of this exchange and I'll fucking slip them in there or something. But give me an opportunity. And you can't just stop Marquez going for that finish, because that's insane. You can't just interrupt finishing sequences because, oh, excuse, his mouthpiece fell out. Like, yeah, his mouthpiece fell out because he's getting rocked, bro. It's a part of the fucking sport. But the ref didn't. And the ref waited until, I don't know whether he was planning to do this or whether he just instinctively, being a great and experienced referee, goes, right, that's the moment. This is my only chance to interject. Otherwise, I have to let this fight play out and this exchange actually finish before I jump him. It's when Brundage has now begun to mount his own offense. He's no longer in this defensive mode trying to get out and like pull himself out of the guillotine. He's now thrown a knee up to Marquez and just kneed Marquez right in the face, and then thrown either a jab or a straight at him after that. And then they don't back off from each other, but Brundage has thrown that knee, boonk, and then he throws the shot, and then they're both just standing in front of each other now, and the ref goes, right, this finishing sequence for Marquez has stopped. He's no longer going for the finish. Brundage is now mounting his own offense, and Marquez is having to be smart about thinking of how he's going to defend himself now. This is the only time I get before either A, Marquez re-engages and restarts this finishing sequence, or Brundage continues off the back of that big knee and that shot he just landed and begins his own finishing sequence. So the ref takes the chance, stops the fight right there, smacks the mouthpieces in their gobs, pats them on the back and smacks them on the ass and says, alright, get a move on, boys. And then they continue the fight. People are going to say that that was unfair, that Marquez's finishing sequence was stopped. It wasn't. Not by the referee. It was stopped by Brundage, by him waking the fuck up and rising from the grave like Christ himself and coming back and mounting his own offense. And that gave the referee the reason to stop the fight, give them back their mouthpiece and say, right, now one of you can knock the other one the fuck out. And it took a little moment after that until they actually got to the finishing sequence where Brundage clips, I can't even remember what kind of shot it was, but Brundage clips Marquez, drops him down bad, follows him to the ground, mounts a bunch of ground and pound. And as I'm watching this, all I'm saying is, ref, I know how tough Brundage is. I don't know how tough Marquez is. But you gotta give Marquez the same fucking treatment you just gave Brundage. You cannot pick and choose who you think is tough and who you want to give the chance to be a warrior. You just gave Brundage the fucking longest length of rope imaginable to survive that exchange and throw up his own offense or come back or be defensively sound or wake up or whatever it was. And he did it, but you gave him so much rope to work with there. So you gotta do the same thing for Marquez here. And I wasn't disappointed. I do still think they could have waited like a second or two longer just to maybe see if Brundage maybe managed to get onto full mount and land 1 or 2 shots after that, or if he decided to switch to a submission attempt, or if maybe he stood up and started punching Marquez not from being on his back anymore. But Marquez was on all fours, crawling around, trying to defend himself, getting clipped with ground and pound from both sides of his chin. It makes sense. The fight was about to end, or like by knockout, or Marquez essentially quitting and just covering up. So people may complain about this fight. I'm not sure. I haven't read anything online, but I just want to say that I don't think it is worth complaining about. I think that all things considered, and in retrospect, even though the referee doesn't have a retrospective view in this fight, you got to look at it as the viewer with retrospect and say, that was a good call, because it was. So that's what I thought. Let me know what you guys thought about this fight in the comments. Okay, next up, Esteban Ribovics versus Nasrat Haqparast. Esteban Ribovics just got robbed. I had him winning 2-1. In my opinion, I thought it was really clear. Quite disappointed. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't see how you can think that Nasrat won. Listen, it was a close fight. It was good. And I did think that it was going to be a split decision. But I didn't think that because I thought that I didn't know who won. I knew who won. I thought Ribovics won. If we look at the numbers, we can see that in rounds 1, it was 36-33 in favor of Ribovics, and in round 2, it was 62-49 in favor of Ribovics. And then in round 3, it was 53-49 in favor of Nasrat. I thought Nasrat won that third round, but I definitely thought that Esteban Ribovics won the first 2. I hope I'm not standing like a dickhead by getting that wrong. I'm just looking at the numbers right now of the striking numbers. All I do remember is that I had it clearly 2-1. So I'm assuming that those are the rounds that I said it was 2-1 on. I apologize, but I watched the event a couple hours ago, so cut me some slack. This was just, in my opinion, just unfair. Again, like I said, I thought it was kind of close. I could see why the judges may have thought Nasrat, but to me, Ribovics got that one clean, 2-1. Nasrat did good. His left hand was clean, sharp, quick, and landing often, but it wasn't enough. That was his weapon. That was his one weapon for the fight. I think the biggest issue that I had was, I believe that, I can't remember which round it was in, but the round that Nasrat got clipped with that massive knee, excuse my fucking phone going off, that Nasrat got clipped with that massive knee from Ribovics. It busted his cheek open badly, and I'm pretty sure that's a round the referees didn't give him. So I think that's very unfair. They should have certainly given that round at the very least to Esteban, even if they didn't think he won other rounds. So if he did get given that round, he would have won the fight. It's weird to me. I think it was a fun fight regardless. Both guys put on a fucking war. It was very back and forth. Now, I just want to point out the numbers for this because as far as I'm aware, it was... Yep. So Ribovics landed 147 and Haqparast landed 135. But for Haqparast, it was 135. Haqparast, sorry. 135 out of 273. Now that is 50%, okay? That is good. Whereas Ribovics did land 33%, okay? That I'll admit. However, it's 49% of 135 out of 273. But Ribovics is 33%, but it's 147, which is 12 strikes more than Haqparast landed, out of 433, which is 150 strikes more than Nasrat even threw. So, in other fights in this card, I've mentioned one guy was throwing a lot but missing a lot, and that's kind of the bit of the downfall. In this instance, Ribovics was throwing a fuck ton, and he was missing a lot, but he still landed more. Way more. 12 strikes more in total. 2 rounds outlanded him more. So to me, that's odd. Doesn't make no sense. If we look at the head strikes, it's 120 to 103 in favor of Ribovics. If we look at the body strikes, it's 17 to 26 in favor of Haqparast. And if we look at the leg strikes, it's 10 to 6 in favor of Ribovics. So this fight was mainly won with head strikes, but apparently the body strikes of Haqparast were favored, because in that second round, I believe, was where he landed that knee. I hope I'm not wrong in that one. That's where he went 49 to 62. So I don't know. It's just flat out weird to me. It's just flat out weird to me. You guys have to let me know if you think otherwise, but in my opinion, Ribovics got robbed. I don't say robbery often because it's a overly used term, okay? Often, my take is close fight that I didn't think the other guy won, but I can see why the judges said so. And often, I even call it in the middle of the fight and go, I bet the judges don't agree on this fight, and we have a split decision, or we have a judge that they don't agree on which rounds the guy won, even if they do all unanimously agree on who won. This one, I didn't think that was going to be the case. I was like, it's a close fight, but to me, very clear 2-1 Nasrat. 2-1 Ribovics. So, is what it is, but this is going to be one of the few times I do say robbery, unfortunately. But hopefully Ribovics gets another fight with another high-level guy and can put on a big performance. And they got fight of the night, so that's good. That's going to help regardless. Ribovics gets 50k at least, even though he didn't get his win bonus. And Haqparast looked good. I will say looked good, and it was fun. He fought well, so I'm not like pissed that he's going to get a high-ranking fight now. It's just sad that the momentum of Ribovics has to come to a stop for that. After the massive fucking win on UFC 306 over Daniel Zellhuber, to knocking out Terrence McKinney in 40 seconds with a head kick, and then you just get your momentum completely brought to a stop by this. So it's unfortunate, but it is what it is, I suppose. Hyder Amil versus William Gomis. This one was interesting. I agreed that I thought Hyder Amil won, but this was one of probably the closest fights on the card, if you ask me. I gave Gomis round 1 pretty clearly, in my opinion, and I gave round 3 to Amil pretty clearly, in my opinion. Round 2 is the close round, and I believe that I said that in my reaction to it as well. And I was thinking, I gave round 1 to Gomis, and then after round 2 ends, I said that was a very close round, but I think Hyder Amil did win that round. And then in the third round, we go in, and Hyder Amil wins it. And I'm ending that fight thinking 2-1 Hyder Amil, with Gomis winning the first round. And I thought judges would be iffy on it. As I say, I can sometimes tell. I usually call it. I'm like, this is probably going to be a bit of a disagreement amongst the judges. And it was. I was correct. It was a split decision. And one of the judges gave Gomis rounds 1 and 2. And the other 2 judges gave Gomis only round 1. So, like I said, pretty much perfectly predicted it. I don't have a whole lot to say about the fight other than that. Gomis spent a lot of time on the back foot. Just a shit ton of time up against the cage, throwing counters constantly. Like, he was rarely pushing forward and then being pushed back to the cage and then trying to get his way out. He was so comfortable to spend minutes at a time up against the cage, just throwing a counter and then backing up against the cage again. I don't know if he likes to have a wall to work off. That's a really weird tactic, in my opinion. Maybe it kind of works for him. He did okay against Hyder Amil, for sure. But it didn't win in the fight. And Hyder was just... He's got 2 weapons, and they're both twins. It's a left hook and a right hook. Sometimes he throws a jab and a straight, but let me tell you, it doesn't look like it. It looks like a hook every time, no matter what. Hyder Amil, every single time he throws a punch, it looks like a hook. So, bro's just fucking windmilling, right? Not like actually. He's not just thoughtlessly throwing shit, but every single time he gets into an exchange, it looks like he's just fucking like a fucking retard. But it works, and he hits really hard when he connects. So, well played to Hyder Amil. Yeah, that's pretty much the story of it. It was just close in the second round, and I feel like Gomis maybe could have got himself this win if he just didn't spend the entire round fight on the back foot and backing up. If he had have walked, I know it's kind of his game. He does a lot of counter striking, a lot of point fighting, kind of taekwondo, karate, kickboxing style. That's how he fights. Bit of an Adesanya kind of style, but it wasn't doing him any favors in terms of how it was looking for the judges. Hyder Amil just was constantly teeing off on him up against the cage, just ripping the shit out of his body and all sorts. So I can't blame the judges for being a little bit iffy about the scoring on it and being like, I'm not sure. But overall, it went the way I thought. Hyder Amil was just better. Gomis was just too tentative and too comfortable to shell up and think, I can take care of myself in this position. I don't need to fight out and then sit out in the open with this guy. Don't know why. Don't know if he had an injury. Don't know if he was too worried or simply didn't feel comfortable in the times that he did spend out in the open, or whether Hyder Amil is just really good at corralling you into a corner and that wasn't apparent to me. One of those things is true, but good job Hyder Amil. Bro's 11-0 in the UFC now, just beat William Gomis, who was arguably due for a ranked fight after beating Jonas and Brito, who I didn't think he beat, but still, he was probably due for a ranked fight after technically having a win over a big name like Brito, who was just outside of the rankings. Didn't get that. Hyder Amil gets it. I reckon Hyder Amil either A, is going to get a ranked fight, or B, will get a fight outside the rankings that the winner will get bumped up to number 15. So, congratulations to him. For the final fight on the main card, we had Danny Barlow versus Sam Patterson. Now, woo-wee! So, early on in the fight, Danny was winning the exchanges. He's controlling the octagon, kind of walking Sam Patterson around, keeping him pushed up against the fence a lot, kind of having his way with him a little bit. I wasn't a fan of the body language of Patterson during this time. There was a lot of, and I think the commentary mentioned it after I did when I was watching it, there was a lot of leaning back like a shit ton of like to dodge a punch, chin up in the air, just leaning all the way back to get out of the way of stuff. That's going to get you caught eventually. It's a very dangerous thing to get used to doing in a fight. Luckily, it didn't get him caught though. So just something I wanted to mention. I sort of thought that Patterson was doing that a whole lot. Patterson gets cornered by Barlow, and Barlow's getting a little bit, I don't want to say arrogant, but confident in his ability to control this and probably win this exchange. And as it goes on, he just uncorks a nice counter, clips Danny Barlow on the side of the head, gets him a little bit shaky, he backs off, and then he sees Patterson start walking towards him, and Danny Barlow just starts backing up. And we're like, oh, you are hurt. You are in danger, and you just made that very obvious to your opponent. So Patterson follows him down, misses a left hand, throws a right that doesn't really connect cleanly, but kind of just grazes across the side of his face and then goes over the back of his shoulder. But it's enough to either mess up the balance of Danny Barlow or push him off balance, at least, to drop him down to the mat where he's looking up at Patterson. He's not against the cage, but he's near it. And then as he tries to stand up, he like backs into the cage to try and post up off of. And Danny Barlow is like this, and Patterson just comes in with a clean that catches Danny Barlow's head between the fence and his fist, and the impact of that drops Barlow down bad. And it is minimal ground and pound shots that need to follow that to actually bring the fight to an end. So Patterson with a shock brutal KO. This is his first fight at 170 pounds as far as I'm aware. He just moved up from 155. So let me just clarify that before I end up realizing that I'm talking out of my ass, because it's very possible. Come on, I'd like you to load, please, internet. Thank you very much. Kiefer Crosby was his last fight. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a lightweight fight. It won't show me though. Why won't you show me? Oh, Jesus Christ, man. This is why I fucking hate Sherdog.com, bro. What a dog shit website, bro. Just tell me what fucking fight it was at. What weight it was at. Where's Tapology, brother? Where's Tapology? I need Tapology. So, this was Sam Patterson's first fight at welterweight. Am I correct? 3, 2, 1. Ding, ding, ding. No, I'm not correct. Kiefer Crosby. Oh, he's fought 3 times at welterweight now. Didn't know that. He's got 3 first-round finishes in a row. The fuck? The fuck? So he wins on the Contender Series at lightweight, comes in and fights Yanal Ashmuz at lightweight, gets knocked out in the first round, and then moved up to welterweight. And just, oh wait, did he? He withdrew from a fight with Haqparast, okay? Just moves up to welterweight, round 1 rear naked choke, round 1 arm triangle choke, and then just got a round 1 knockout. Don't know how this has slipped under my radar. I did watch that Kiefer Crosby fight, obviously. It was on UFC 304. But, sure. Ignore my stupidity. I apologize. This was not his first fight at 170. He has indeed fought at 170 before. But, well played for Sam Patterson. He's probably looking for a ranked fight next, to be honest. If not, a fringe fighter. Just on the fringe of the rankings. Because that's crazy. 3 first-round finishes in a row after moving up a weight class. That's pretty impressive and doesn't go unnoticed at all. So, literally, that's all I really have to say about it. Just the play-by-play of how that knockout went. It was just a nice. The right hook was just really clean that he landed when Barlow's up against the cage, and it just clatters his head against the fence traps his head between the fence and Patterson's fists, and he just dropped like a sack of potatoes. It took a couple of ground and pound shots after that, and the ref is like, yeah, she's done for. So congratulations to Patterson, and yeah, he's doing really well at welterweight. See how he goes in the future. Mario Pinto. This is what I wanted to see from Taliesin Teixeira, okay? Not this fucking oblong, awkward, alien-looking ass shit where the guy just looks like a fucking retard, straight up. Is what Taliesin Teixeira looks like when he's in the octagon. He looks like he doesn't know how to control his own body, okay? That's maybe just because of the size. Volkov doesn't look like that. Volkov looks a bit awkward and oblong, but Taliesin Teixeira just looks like it looks like when you make a video game character and you purposely max out all the fucking stats to make it look as retarded as you could. He's not fat, he's not skinny, he's not anything like that, but he just looks so wiry and weird, dude. Like, Rebellious to Spain if Rebellious to Spain was retarded, basically, in terms of his build. That's what, to me, that's what Taliesin Teixeira looks like. But Mario Pinto comes in. He goes up against 6'6" Austen Lane in his UFC debut. He is 6'5" himself. The start of it, first half of the round, bit of a staring contest, some minor clinching, and then a big shot from Pinto caught Lane's attention, had him backing up like, oh, okay, I see the power, I kind of get it. And then in the last half of the round, Lane clipped Pinto, but he clinched up with him for some reason. He hurt Pinto like bad, like he dropped him in fact, with a nice shot, because Pinto kind of dropped down real low to dip under a shot, and he was way off balance when he got clipped in the side of the temple, and it kind of dropped him down. Austen decides to clinch up with him and just loses all momentum that he had the opportunity of making use of. So that was fucking stupid. Makes it out to the end of the round because of that. Mario Pinto does. And then coming into the second round, Lane just comes out swinging like a fucking psychotic retard. Literally just winging punches and running forward at Mario Pinto. Don't know why. Don't know what prompted him to think that was a good idea. Don't know if his corner said it. Don't know if he decided to do it. But he did it. Shortly after, he immediately was like, okay, never mind. Got that out of my system. Just had to do that for 15 seconds real quick. Beats me why, but he did that. And then in the latter... Sorry. And then right after that, calms down a little bit. Just goes, okay. Then they just go back to heavyweight, normal. Picking his shots, playing it kind of slow. And then, boom! Austen Lane's asleep. Big 1-2, Mario Pinto, left hook, clips him on the side of the chin, and then a big straight right hand comes in behind it and just lights off for Austen Lane. And he just hits the mat flat on his back. And he is outy, good nighty, take your fucking blankie because you're going for a long sleepy time, okay? I'm excited to see the next step in Mario Pinto's UFC career, because dude looked nice on the DWCS, Dana White's Contender Series, and it was a bit of a questionable knockout because it was just a one-shot left hook that didn't even look that clean, and the guy just dropped. But I was like, oh, I mean, if that got him, it got him. I can't really argue with it. Like, it was clean. It just looked weird. This one, however, was clean and looked good. So, well, whether Austen Lane's been knocked out a few times before or not is, it is what it is. But now Mario Pinto has got a Contender Series first round knockout, I believe, and a UFC debut second round knockout. Both clear knockouts with one or two punches, and he walked off from them. I don't know if he walked off from this one. He more kind of went to follow Austen to the ground and then didn't need to, I believe. If I'm wrong, I'm sorry. I'm retarded. I'm recalling 10 fights at a time right now, so I've had to take notes and stuff for that kind of stuff to remember everything. But I'm excited to see what this guy can do in heavyweight, because, like I just said, Taliesin Teixeira, this is what I want to see. Not weirdly retarded finishes over Justin Tafa. Like, I don't give a shit. This is how you make heavyweight prospects, and I think this guy has a future. I'm sorry for shitting on Taliesin Teixeira so much, but to me it's just like, I get so annoyed when we see a prospect and then they're like getting wins and getting places, and everyone's like, look at this guy, man, doing so well, and I'm like, like, his record and resume would lead you to believe that, but not the performances. Nah, G. Nah. That just ain't clear like that to me. So, anyway, good job, Mario Pinto. Congratulations, and I'm excited to see him continue. Beautifully entertaining fight between Ricardo Ramos versus Chepe Mariscal. This was another fight that I'm not going to say it was a close fight because it wasn't, but there was competitiveness almost the entire way through it. Now, Chepe did dominate the majority of this fight, but it was insanely entertaining. Ramos was able to keep himself in the battle and be giving something in return almost the entire time. Okay, he had good moments. He held his ground, and he was always there to be in the fight. He was never really getting like clipped and fucked up and like, oh my god, this round is like low key a 10-8, or that's just not like the thing. That's not what was happening. But Ramos is the best way to say it is he's too focused on taking pictures. It was very, 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 and the commentary pointed this out during the fight, and I agree. It was very evident of trying to look for a finish that would look cool. Trying to clip farm, I guess if you want to say. It seemed like he was basically looking to build a moment that he could capitalize on against Chepe, whether that's learning Chepe's movement rhythm or trying to catch an opening in Chepe's game or whatever, and throw something that he was going to knock him out with or knock him down with badly without needing to put together combinations or get into brutal, gritty, dangerous exchanges. Chepe was happy to oblige him with exactly that though. Brutal, gritty, and dangerous exchanges all the time, and just constant pressure and force. To me, that is what lost Ricardo Ramos this fight. He just wasn't willing to play the game with Chepe Mariscal the way that Mariscal was willing to play the game with him. His style would work against a guy that maybe is a bit less aggressive than Chepe, or that is equally as aggressive as Ricardo Ramos is, but because you're up against a big aggressive guy, you got to match that, because you can't sit on the outside, take pictures and try and look good and, try and Adesanya your way through a round if you're not willing to either be really, really defensively sound and block everything this guy's throwing at you, or actually get the finish and make the losing rounds because you're giving away striking numbers worth it. And Ricardo Ramos just, in my opinion, didn't make it worth it, because he was just looking for that the entire time. I don't know if he was trying to put together some sort of game plan in relation to counters or setting up an exchange that would stop Chepe from marching at him, but either he wasn't, or he did but didn't do it, or he did and tried and didn't work. So Chepe is a bit of a dog, to be honest. I feel like from memory, I hate to be this guy, but I feel like Chepe technically lost his last fight, and it was a bit of a robbery, if I can remember who it was against. I could be wrong, so I might be thinking, no, that was Damon Jackson. Oh, Morgan Charrier. Yeah, I thought Morgan Charrier beat Chepe Mariscal, to be honest, but Morgan Charrier has been gone since then. That was April last year. Chepe's fought twice since then. So, oh no, he fought Gabriel Miranda after that. Oh yeah, that was... Oh, how could I forget a knockout like that? Sorry, guys. I just got a visceral reaction from remembering that knockout. Oh, God. God, my underwear is soaked now. Jesus. Chepe Mariscal did good. Great shit. All three judges gave it to Chepe 30-27. I was thinking that maybe one round could have gone to Ricardo Ramos. I can't remember which round it was from now. Like at this point, I can't remember. But I was expecting to see 29-28 unanimous decision, but we got 30-27, so I guess whatever round I did think Ricardo won, he maybe didn't do quite as much as I thought, or maybe perhaps the moments were short-lived and were kind of, what's the word, like, overshadowed by Chepe's moments of big output and long periods of domination and clearly having the better part of a lot of exchanges. So fair enough to him, dude. Bro's got pressure, high volume combinations, and just grit, and it worked. So I think Chepe probably deserves a ranked fight next, if I'm going to be honest. He'll probably get one. So good shit. Congratulations to Chepe Mariscal. Okay, up next, Danny Silva versus Lucas Almeida. Now, this is a close fight. I gave it to Danny Silva, but it was close at times. And from memory, I want to say Almeida won the third round, and Danny Silva won the first two. I believe so. I don't really remember this fight all that well. This is one of the first fights I watched. This was what was on when I loaded up the stream, I believe. Or maybe I watched Andrea Lee, JJ Aldrich first. But this is one of the first fights I watched, and it was obviously in the morning. But I did watch it, and I've gone back and watched a little bit of it since then. Biggest thing to note was that Almeida was just missing. Danny Silva was just making him miss and miss and miss. And granted, this is an example of what I was saying about Nasrat Haqparast versus Esteban Ribovics, where Ribovics did throw more, but he also did land more, luckily. Because if you throw more and land less, that looks bad for you. But if you throw more and land more, then you need to really account for, okay, not only did he land more, but he also threw a shit ton more. So the activity is there as well as the accuracy, or at least the number of strikes landed, whether it's less accurate per shot thrown or not. It's how many things you landed more. So same thing here, but in reverse. Danny Silva landed, let me get the numbers here. Official numbers are 82 out of 137 for Danny Silva, which is 60% landing rate. Okay? While Almeida landed 74, only 6 shots less, or 8 shots less actually, than Danny Silva, out of 240, which is 30%. So his accuracy was half, and he threw 100 strikes more. There was 82 of 137, basically 140, and then 74 out of 240. So it's over 100 strikes more thrown and 8 less landed with 30% accuracy difference. Double, literally 30% to 60%. It's not only is it a 30% difference, it's double the accuracy. Not variable, but whatever you would say. The difference, there's a better word for it, but difference between the two numbers. That's pretty much the story of the fight, in my opinion. I believe I thought Almeida won the third round and Danny won the first two off of those numbers. It was a decent scrap for the two of them. Wasn't too bad, wasn't anything super special, but it was fun. But I thought Danny Silva clearly won it. Below that, get ready for a 30-second breakdown. Boring fight, to be honest. Okay, it was close. Andrea Lee versus JJ Aldrich. It wasn't super close, but it was close. But man, I thought it was clear on a round-by-round basis that Aldrich won. Andrea Lee is now 13-11. 13-11. And not only is she 13-11, but she is on a losing streak in the UFC of 6 fights. She has lost 6 fights in a row in the UFC. Andrea Lee is literally on a Tony Ferguson style run without the Tony Ferguson run before that. She was mid and now she's going on a 6-fight losing streak. I'm sorry. I don't know if she retired. Maybe she did. If she did, fair. But if she didn't, UFC, you gotta cut her. You cannot keep that around. That is just insane. That's all I really have to say about it. The fight wasn't that great. The striking numbers are literally 66 to 77. 1 takedown out of 4 for Andrea Lee and 2 out of 3 for JJ Aldrich. Just mid. If I'm a retard for saying this fight's mid, let me know, because it was. This was the actual first fight I watched when I loaded up my phone in the morning. And I think I watched it on double speed, maybe, or 1.5 times speed. But just questionable. That's all it is. Just questionable as to why we keep fighters like this around. She was on a 4-fight losing streak and you decided to give her a 5th fight. And then when she lost that one, you said, you know what? JJ Aldrich needs a fight. I think this is exactly who we're looking for. Yeah. Weird to me. Moving on. Ramazan Bek Temirov versus Charles Johnson. My boy Temirov, who I've been keen on since his UFC debut. Obviously, he came in and knocked out CJ Vergara insanely in the first round in his debut. I think it was like within 2 minutes or something like that as well. Obviously, it's CJ Vergara, so it is what it is. But this time, he goes in there with Charles Johnson, who is no easy customer at all. In fact, he's got like a record that is kind of synonymous for having, like, I don't want to say fraud checked guys, but having been the boulder in the way of a lot of win streaks, like a lot of guys. For example, he beat Suma Duerji, and Suma Duerji at that time was on a losing streak. That's fine. He beat Joshua Van, who was on a 3-fight winning streak at that point and was only had 1 loss in his career. That was ages ago. He beat Jake Hadley, who was at that time Jake Hadley was 2-3, so that's fair. And then he beat Azat Maxum before that, who had his debut, won it, and then lost his next fight to Charles Johnson. But Charles is on a 4-fight win streak of 3 decisions and 1 finish over Joshua Vam. And all 3 of those decisions, people say, was questionable and could have maybe gone his way. And before that, he has Rafael Esteban, Cody Durden, and Ode Osborne, all by decision losses, which were also very close fights. So regardless of, I mean, he literally lost to Rafael Esteban with striking numbers of 72-18. Now, there's 10 minutes of control time in there. But still, to be fair, it's all in the 3rd round that he got most of his strikes in, so that's fair. The thing about Charles Johnson is just, man, dude has been fighting in an annoyingly high amount of close fights. And I don't mind a close fight here and there, but I've said it before and I'll say it again. We need to be worried about Bilal and Movsar Evloev and fucking, who else? There's going to be other examples of it I can't think of right now. Style fighters. Not in terms of the way that their style is. Sorry, I shouldn't say style. But esque fighters. In terms of reaching really high rankings without clear performances. With very unclear performances, in fact, where you arguably had lost to other guys who either A, went on good streaks after that and got up to the top, or B, even worse, lost to you in a close fight, then went on to lose badly in their next fights, and or go on lost streaks even, in fact. It's just annoying to see. If you get finishes, I don't care. If you get dominant decisions, I don't care. But when you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 decisions in your last 8 fights, and a lot of people are saying that pretty much all of them are really close, I don't want to see you in the rankings. I don't want to see you in top level fights. I want to see you staying down at the bottom until you are getting clear decisions. Because otherwise we end up with Bilal's. Who Barlow at times is getting pretty clear decisions, but he has been and Movsar is probably a better example of this, honestly, as much as I don't like Barlow. Movsar is a better example. Getting into the top 5 of your division while you've had like 3 fights in your UFC career that people say you arguably lost. Like, that's just not fair to be in the top of that division while there's 3 guys that you fought who could have continued their way up the top of the division, and all 3 of them, not just one guy, that happens to most people. Everybody runs into one close fight or something, but when you've had several, and there's multiple of them where the majority of the fans say that should have gone the other way, that's when it gets questionable, and that's where it becomes very unfair. So Charles Johnson, don't hate the guy. I've heard he's got a great story, how he got here. He's not like he's got an unentertaining style. He's a striker and a grappler. He's not a boring wrestler or like a Brandon Royval kind of striker, or a Corey Sandhagen, what Corey Sandhagen actually is versus what he says he is. He's not that necessarily, but performance-wise, it's never clear, and that doesn't ever make me want to see you in ranked fights. So I'm glad that he lost, but moreover, I'm happy that Ramazan Temirov won. He fought against that height disadvantage for the first 2 rounds really well and effectively. There was a lot he relied really heavily on his big overhands and stuff like that. It's kind of his game plan, especially when he's 5'4", fighting a 5'9" guy, Charles Johnson being fucking 5'9" in the flyweight division. But still impressive from Ramazan. I don't know why I said still, but impressive from Ramazan to be fighting a guy with such a height disadvantage, who is a really experienced. We're talking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 UFC fights. This was Charles Johnson's 11th UFC fight. It was Ramazan Temirov's 2nd. So go figure. Who's got the experience and the ability? There's a reason Charles Johnson's ranked number 12. He's got all that experience and he's on a 4-fight win streak now. I don't agree with it, but stats don't lie. Ramazan Temirov, however, they decided to give him a fucking... I don't know why. I don't know if this was a cancelled fight. I don't think it was. I'm pretty sure this was literally the booked fight from... this was the intention from the moment it was booked. Yep, looks like that's the case. Kind of crazy that they decided to do that to Temirov and that Charles Johnson accepted it. But fucking fair play. I think coming into that 3rd round, Charles Johnson knew that he needed a finish. because he lost those first 2 rounds. He fought quite well in that 3rd round, and he just couldn't quite get the finish. He had Ramazan essentially, this is what I'll say, he essentially just deconstructed Ramazan's game plan in that 3rd round. I don't know if it's because Ramazan was tired or because Ramazan went on the defense because he knew he won the first 2 rounds, but I think if Charles Johnson fights that way that he fought in the 3rd round for at least one of the first 2 rounds, he wins a decision 2-1. Like that method worked. You just had to be more aggressive, follow Ramazan around more, push him over, use your height to impose on him, and not be so scared of his big winging overhands. Even though they're powerful, I get it. Like, they're really strong, and you got clipped with them multiple times that you had to back up and get your wits about you for. The 3rd round, you just made it obvious that, like, Ramazan wasn't that much of a threat to you. Like, he was, but he wasn't that much. Like, 1st round, it's 15-21 in favor of Ramazan. 2nd round, 14-19 in favor of Ramazan. Round 3, 37-15 for Charles Johnson. Where the fuck was that, man? You had 2 rounds to display that, and you didn't. So you've got only yourself to blame for losing this fight, because it's not even just like you got outclassed for 3 rounds. You got outclassed for 2, and then in the 3rd round decided to turn on a fucking switch and were like, oh, I could have done this all along. So it's your own fault, Charles Johnson. Sorry. Temirov, you have got 2 fights in the UFC, and now you're ranked. That's really fast-tracked, but I hope he does well and makes it clear in his future fights that he deserved to be fast-tracked like that, because I've got a bit of faith in him. I think he's going to run into a brick wall soon. I don't think he's invincible, and I think there is holes in his game to be exploited for sure, but I just reckon he'll do pretty well. It's flyweight, you know, the bottom of the flyweight rankings tends to be pretty easy to kind of smurf in, if you want to call it that. So I reckon he'll do pretty well there, and I'm excited to see who they match him up with next. Congratulations, Ramazan Temirov, and welcome back to the UFC, but welcome into the rankings. Alright guys, that's going to be the end of today's video. I hope you did enjoy it. Be sure to check out any clips that might come from this video, or any reactions that are going to come from the Fight Companion, as well as the Fight Companion itself. It's going to have chapters all along, so you can see which fight you are looking for the reaction of in that live stream. Come and join in for next week's live stream, UFC 313, Alex Pereira versus Magomed Ankalaev, as well as Gaethje versus Fiziev, the rematch on short notice, and a bunch of other really good fights on there. Obviously, we've got Marisha Hufi versus Bobby Green, yada, yada, yada. So I am very excited for that one. I hope you guys are too. Be sure to join me live on that stream. There will be a notification coming out. If you are subscribed and have notifications on, you'll get one 30 minutes before the stream starts and when the stream starts. So be sure to join me. I'd love to have you guys there. The chat's becoming more and more active almost every single week at this rate with these live streams. So I'm hoping to have more of you there every time. I will see you guys all later in the next breakdown video, or in whatever video it is that you choose to watch next. So leave a like, comment, let me know what your favorite fight of this card was. I hope you guys did enjoy, and I'll see you guys all in the next Mixed Martial Arts video. Goodbye.